Alright, well, I've been meaning to do this for quite a while now. Um, I just finished my first semester of grad school in applied math in a PhD program at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I graduated from there for undergrad just this year, and I am doing my first semester, which has had some highlights and lowlights, let's put it that way. And I've been meaning to make this video for a while. I want to kind of discuss how it went, what's it like to be in grad school as a math major, and yeah, I just want to give a brief overview of that because I think a lot of people don't know what it's like to be in grad school and what that entails. So, as for myself, I'm 23 years old. I have been doing the normal sequence of, high school, undergrad, grad, no breaks in between. So I'm at like the youngest age really you can do graduate school without having skipped grades or done community college or something like that. Um, so I'm one of the younger people in the program actually, because in graduate school there's a lot of people who are older than you. I've had a guy who was in his mid 40s. I have a lot of people who did their master's degree already and now they're doing their PhD, so they're in their late 20s. There's a lot of different people doing grad school. It's different than undergrad where everyone's the same age as you, which is okay. And another interesting thing is that a lot of people are getting married. I wasn't expecting that, but there's one girl in our program who is engaged. I was like, okay, so this is normal for people in graduate school to be, not just dating anymore. These are adults who have their lives mostly figured out, and uh, that was crazy because I'm not used to a lot of people I'm around having their lives totally figured out. I think that's a fairly common thing in undergrad that people don't have their whole life figured out. They're still trying to choose their path. But these people, they're involved in those really serious life commitments as well as doing their graduate degree, which is really cool. So that is something that I wasn't expecting. So graduate school kind of started for me in July. Let's put it that way. I moved down to North Carolina from New York, where I have grown up, in early July, and I was not at all expecting, the whole series of events that I'm about to share with you to unfold. So I went to undergrad at UNC as well as graduate school now. So I was like, oh, I kind of understand like how things are around here. I know the area pretty well, which was super nice. I know a lot of my friends. That wasn't the case. They weren't from where they're going to grad school. They didn't stay at the same school for grad as undergrad. So in early July, or early June actually, I was still trying to figure out housing because I was originally intending to live with some friends, but then there was a whole fiasco with that, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to have housing there. So I ended up going in the graduate student housing at the university housing, which is not bad. I really really like it here. It's actually where I'm living right now. So I got a nice room. It's in my own apartment I have with a roommate. But I have my own bathroom to myself, which advice for anyone who is rooming with someone else: if you can get a two bathroom and have a roommate, so each have your own bathroom, that's really good. Um, I just personally enjoy that, having my own privacy and my own stuff to myself. I really like that. Nothing against my roommate. It's just nice. It's something I didn't know that I was going to like having. So if you ever have that opportunity or going to grad school, I would highly recommend, if you can, get a two bathroom. Um, so I came down in early July, mainly because my girlfriend Hannah, who I started dating in undergrad, was having a surgery, and I was like, I want to be there for her, and she really doesn't have a lot of people nearby that can help her after surgery. So I was like, if I'm moving back down there, I may as well do it a little early. So I ended up moving down in July. Classes didn't start until like mid-August, like I think August 18th. So I had time to get myself settled in, which was such a good call. I had a lot of stuff I had to do. I had to get my driver's license transferred over to North Carolina from New York. I had to get insurance for the first time. I had to start cooking for myself. Getting groceries, doing my dishes, really living like an adult. Because undergrad didn't really have that experience. I did have my own kitchen to myself, so I didn't cook a ton. And it was really the first time in grad school where I've had to do a lot of things for myself. Now, it wasn't like I couldn't do them. It was just getting into a new routine was a little difficult at first because, it's just an adjustment period. I had a lot of preliminary stuff like, getting some stuff out of storage. I had to learn how to, um, just drive around everywhere because for the last 4 years, I've been walking everywhere. I had to budget my gas. I had to budget what money I had. So I work as a TA right now, and my stipend that I get comes from working as a teaching assistant. I grade papers. I teach recitations. I'll be teaching classes soon, a couple of years, or maybe even next year. Um, and I'm a tutor as well. So I do a lot of that type of work, and that's what pays for my tuition and pays my stipend, so I can, live, eat, pay rent, that kind of thing. Um, so with that being said, I didn't start my TAing until August, and I didn't get my first paycheck until August 30th, but I came down in June, so I was living off savings, which, as someone who likes to have a lot of security in my life, likes to plan ahead, that was definitely difficult. I did not like living off savings. I'm like, I made it. I had plenty of money left over. I had multiple hundreds of dollars left over between me and having nothing, uh, between my first paycheck. So it worked out fine. But it was just a 1 month period of like, okay, hope nothing goes wrong, hope I don't have a big car expense. It was just how it was, It was an adventure looking back, but it was very stressful because, I didn't have an income for that month and a half. So then August started, and that's when classes began. I was getting acclimated to my new life at the same time, so I had to figure out a bus route. I had to figure out how to get to school because I live, walking distance, like 25 minutes from where my class is. It's on campus housing, but it's very far from the academic buildings. That was, I was like, okay, I can take the bus. It's a nice bus. It's kind of just, it's a bus. I can take that. I did that in high school. So it's a little different than undergrad because I just walked to class then. That was an adjustment that I wasn't expecting, but, nonetheless, it worked out nicely. Um, as when classes started, things really picked up. I was worried that classes were going to be very difficult because at UNC, our STEM programs are difficult. They're a lot of work. And I was thinking to myself, well, if undergrad was tough, is grad school also going to be tough? And the answer is yes. It was very, very difficult. The first 2 months were awful. August and September, classwork-wise, were unbearable. Let's put it that way. I had some really bad professors, which is sad that they give them to graduate students, because you'd think that graduate students at the high level of learning that they're doing would, benefit greatly from someone who not only knows the material really well but also cares. That didn't really happen for my scientific computation course, which is basically using math to deal with data sets and that kind of thing. It's a lot of linear algebra. If you're in the know about that branch of math, then it's a lot of advanced linear algebra and applying it. That course was, for lack of a better word, a total shit show. We were having to do a project, a homework revision, all at the same time, and study for a quiz. And it was like, why? Why do we have to do all of this at the same time? And luckily for us, the TA, well, not luckily for the TA, but the the department didn't have enough funding for him to TA that class as well. And so the teacher lost his TA, and so he couldn't give us as much homework for like the rest of the semester. Which was good for us because it meant us having a reasonable amount of homework instead of a ridiculous amount that even the TA couldn't keep up with. And I feel bad that he had to teach, or he had to grade all of our high-level math homework and the revisions and our projects. It was honestly ridiculous. I would have hated to be that TA. So honestly, it might have been good that they lost funding for him because I don't know how he was keeping up. We were barely keeping up as students, and we only had one assignment to do. He had to grade like 16 of them. So once that class settled out, things were a lot better. I had an advanced graduate course because the prereqs for it were really non-existent. As long as you were in the graduate program, you could basically take it. But it was a higher level course, so what was expected of us was far more than really I was ready for. It was really difficult. It was a stochastics class, So that's like probability and how random motion can be like worked into integrals and how math changes when things are random and not deterministic, which on a surface level doesn't sound too bad, but the math behind it can be very, very difficult. And I had very little background in statistics. So the first homework we had was so difficult. Myself and my friend group thought we were gonna like fail out of grad school. It was like, okay, can we get more than a low pass in this course? And we all ended up passing it. So it was fine. In the end, disclaimer, I passed all my courses, and I think a couple of my friends got high passes in their some of their courses, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So um, October and November were a lot better. I had a lot more time to spend time with friends, spend time with Hannah, and it was overall a better end to the semester than I thought I would have had based on the first couple of weeks. Finals were really, really difficult. I'll say that. I only had 2 finals. I am taking 3 classes, so I have scientific computation, methods of applied math, and stochastic processes, modeling stochastic processes. I did well enough in that advanced graduate course that I thought I was going to fail, enough to where I didn't have to do the final project. So I really didn't have any final in that class, which was super, super nice because I had a lot of time to study for my other 2 courses. My scientific computation, I did the worst on that exam that I have in anything in my math career. I got a 15% on the final. I still passed it because I did really, really well in the rest of the course. Like, I understood the material as far as I knew, like, really, really well. I did well in the projects. I was good at presenting stuff in, like, scientific way and, doing the calculations and proofs or whatever that were required of us. I felt like I knew the material really well, and I just did really, really badly on the final. So my friends did a lot better than me on the final, so they got high passes in that class, which was awesome for them. Like, I'm super stoked that they did that because they thought they were, like, one of my friends thought he was going to fail out of grad school. Like, I think we all did at one point, but he ended up doing really well. I didn't really do well on the final that day, but I did well in the course. Like, I understood the stuff, I think, really well. So that is how the semester ended. I got a pass in all of my classes, and graduate school does not grade on ABC, or, well, most grad schools, I think, don't do that in STEM. They grade on pass, high pass, low pass, fail. At UNC, if you fail one class, kicked out of the program. If you get 3 low passes, kicked out of the program. So you're allowed 2 low passes. And so high pass and pass have almost no distinguishment in your standing in the program. I mean, yeah, awesome, like, good for you, you got a high pass, like, you get recognized for that, but it doesn't change, can you stay in the program or not. It's like, okay, pass, cool, move on, next semester, let's do these courses, let's get this done so we can work on research. A big part of graduate school is working on research and producing a brand new thought, basically, like, aha, here's something brand new I can add to the mathematical community, some brand new research work. So that is the end goal, is to get research done. But coursework for 2 years, research for 3 years is kind of how it goes. So I only have 3 more semesters of coursework, and hopefully they will be a little more manageable than what I just described, because it was really tough. The material is really tough. There's you have more time to work on the problems you're given than in undergrad because you have fewer classes, but it takes longer to work on problems. So, for instance, I think this is what people really want to know. How much work do I get in grad school? Well, I have a TA, so I have to grade papers for one class, linear algebra. I had to TA, which meant preparing recitation sheets, like worksheets for students to review Calc 1 stuff. Nothing too hard to teach, like, conceptually. I mean, I have the calc down pretty well. I mean, you'd imagine that a grad student knows his calculus pretty well. So it wasn't hard to remember the material, but teaching for the first time was also very difficult because there was a lot of things I didn't know. Like, I went too fast for some students, and I had an evaluation. They're like, hey, you gotta slow down, and the students actually really liked it. So I actually did really well. After I made those adjustments, I slowed down, I gave some students, like, individual help, and they're like, okay, this is really, really helpful. I like this a lot. Maybe I could have done that from the beginning, but I wasn't aware. So the department at UNC did a really good job saying, hey, this is what you need to do differently, and I got a lot of constructive feedback. So learning how to teach is something that is not easy, but luckily I got, I think, 8 nominations for a teaching award from just one class that I taught. So that was really cool. It was really, really heartwarming to see that all my hard work paid off and that people recognized that I tried really hard to help them learn Calc 1. So that was good. That being said, I'm going to go into a couple highlights and lowlights of this semester because I think that um, that they'll sum up my experience a lot better than giving rogue details of things that happened to me. So I think I'm going to start with the highlights first. A couple of things I really liked was the fact that I knew the area was really, really good, and the fact that I had Hannah here, who is such a loving girlfriend to me, and she is so caring, and she went out of her way to really help me a lot. Like on nights where I had to study late, she would literally cook dinner for the both of us, or get me like McDonald's or something. And it was really, really nice to have someone to help me um, on the days I just did not have time to do things for myself. And I can't thank her enough for everything she has done to help me through this semester, and all her prayers and effort that she has gone to help me get through all of my classes and done everything she can. So that was really our highlight. And our relationship has just been really sweet, and I mean I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It's been tough to balance grad school and a relationship, but it is definitely doable and it's really worth it. So um, I also enjoyed having the freedom with a car to go around and buy groceries instead of having to carry them back from Target. I can now go to other places like Aldi and Wegmans where I can get food for a lot cheaper, and it helps me budget. Um, Really having a car has was the biggest difference between grad and undergrad, and living life outside of school. I can go places, I can see friends, I can when I have time at least. But I can get groceries and I can really live like a young adult. It's been so helpful. Having my own income and budgeting stuff has been awesome because it's a stipend. It's not a lot. I'm only getting I think 18,000 a year, which is pretty low. But for one person, I have very few expenses. I have rent, I have insurance, I have food, I have gas. I mean that's really it. And maybe a couple like leisurely things a month. I can put away a pretty large chunk of that paycheck, and learning how to balance that has been really awesome. It's a lot easier than I expected it to be, but I think I'm a rather frugal person in what I spend. So it was easier than I thought it was going to be. I'm like, oh shoot, I'm going to have to like budget every penny, but I have a lot more leniency in, hey, I want to, grab a Happy Meal or something, I can go do that. I really enjoy that financial freedom that I've had because this is the first time in my life that I've had consistent income, and been consistently working. So that step to the next phase of my life has been pretty awesome. I enjoyed it. I have gray hairs now. I don't know if you can really see them, but I have multiple. Probably can't see it in this camera. It's not high enough resolution, but I have I think it counted 10 or so gray hairs. So I guess I'm on my way to becoming a silver fox or whatever. And the last two highlights are things I'm really proud of. First, I finished my book, which is called Winter's End. It's autobiographical, and it's about my spiritual journey I had with God in the fall and spring of my senior year of undergrad. So I wrote down and I journaled a lot of the stuff that happened to me. It's been a wild ride. It was, I think I documented about a 7 or 8 month period of time, and all the events that happened in there. Entirely true story. I wrote it, Anna helps me edit it and do stylistic grammar stuff, and she helps me with the cover, which I'll show you again is, it's pretty simple, but she did the design with the little flames here, and I went through a lot of iterations on what I wanted it to look like, and my friends gave me a lot of feedback. So finally having it published through Amazon Publishing, which I can talk about some other time, how to get your book published. It's I'm holding the copy of something I've been working on for over a year. Writing it down and transcribing it onto a Google Doc and a readable format, editing it, everything. It's been wild to go through that process of publishing a book while trying to balance undergrad work and graduate work, and I finally got it done in October. I actually published it on my birthday, which was really cool. I mean, it's like the best birthday present I could ask for. It's like having my own book out there. So I'll put a link in the description to the book if you're interested in reading it. I also finished my second publication in math, so it was a not applied math paper. It was a pure math paper on doing solving, or not solving, but proving that solutions exist to certain quasi-linear differential equations. So that's a big mouthful for saying I proved that a solution exists, but I didn't actually find the solution, which is a thing in math that's very common. And I'm hoping in the future I can work on doing solutions to it with some of the graduate work that I'm doing, which is really cool. So I am a published author in literature, like autobiographical works, and in math works. So we're still waiting on, obviously it hasn't been published yet, but it's in review. So it's really cool. I got 2 publications done in 1 year. And I'll close with the lowlights because this has been a 21-minute video so far. I went through a lot of stress this semester, like more than I have in the rest of my life. I had a pretty bad depression during this semester. It was really hard, I will say that. Especially in August and September where school was just insane. I felt like, why am I doing this? I have a bachelor's degree, I could drop out and just do something else. And I was like, no, just stick with it. My parents were like, no, just stick with it, it gets better. Because both my parents went to graduate school at UNC and they're like, it's really hard, just keep pushing. And I was like, okay. I don't like to quit, and so I wasn't really ever planning on dropping out. But it was something where I was like, every day, you go to your office, you do this homework, you go to class. It was really repetitive and really draining, and I'm like, can I even do this? Like, can I even pass this stuff? Because a lot of us are thinking, like, are we even gonna like pass grad school? So there was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of questioning my intelligence. Like, am I smart enough to do this? Can I actually do I have the capability of doing this? And the answer is yeah. By God's grace, I am sitting with a pass in all of my classes. Like, seriously, like, I don't know how I would have done it without supernatural intervention. What I told one of my friends who I ran into just this week, I was like, if you ever want proof that God exists, the fact that I'm still in grad school is great evidence for that. And all of the stuff I wrote about in this book, which is something you should definitely look at because it took a lot of effort, and I think it's a good book, and people have said it's really well written, so do it. Link in the description. Some awful homework assignments, I kind of went into that already. Not having a lot of time for faith and spiritual related stuff, so the church that I was involved in was a house church, so we do all of our worship and like Sunday stuff in a house instead of like a building dedicated to it, which is really nice because it's personal and everyone in the community really well, and so it's like how church is like really supposed to be, where like like everyone there and you're all accountable and you help each other in life, and it's awesome. It feels like a family, and that's kind of like what the basis of like this book was. Like, this is what I was doing. This is why my life was so great senior year of college. And a lot of that community has moved away from Chapel Hill. So a lot of them are overseas doing like ministry and stuff. So they're not here. Some of them have moved, just to like the next town over. And a lot of them have graduated because there's a lot of seniors in the community. So it was really tough. Because that community that I was kind of like relying on going back to just wasn't really there the way I wanted it to be. And I've had to kind of like, go to try out different gatherings, different places, and Hannah's been helpful with, being like, hey, let's try this out, or like, you want to do this? Okay, we'll do that. So that's been nice. We've been doing that together, but it's been tough that community base that I've had, I've just not been able to really keep in touch with, and especially with graduate school being so hefty. Even if I had not had the same experience where everyone has been like moving away, I don't have time to go to 3 events a week that I did in undergrad. So that's frustrating because I felt like it was kind of my fault. Like, I feel like I should be being a better steward of my time, but it's just how it was. I can't really do much about that. I'm trying my best, you know, with what I have right now. Um, yeah, I think having a lot of my friends also graduate at the same time and move to other places in North Carolina, because a lot of my undergrad friends were from North Carolina. They're because this is a state school, and a lot of my friends moved back to where near they were originally from. Like in North Carolina, they moved to like Charlotte or Raleigh or wherever, and so I didn't have a lot of people to connect with that I thought I was going to have, which was tough. But that being said, I've made it through my first semester, and I'm glad for where I am. So if you're considering doing grad school, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to do. But if you're smart enough to get into grad school, do it. Um, if you want to have a job that requires grad school, like if you're smart enough to get into grad school, and you have the resume to do it, like then you should do it. It's tough, but it definitely makes you grow up. It definitely makes you take responsibility more. All which are really, really good things. And as someone who thought I was going to fail out of grad school, you may have the same experience. You may think it's really tough. You may think, like, I can't do this, but you can. And with that, I think I'm going to close because it is now almost 1 in the morning. I'm on winter break right now. I'm going back home to see my parents for the first time in, gosh, I haven't been to New York in almost like half a year. So I've been away from home for a while. So with that, I think that's all for this video, and I think I'm going to keep documenting my experience in grad school. But have a blessed morning, noon, afternoon, day, night, wherever you are. Yeah, talk to you in the next video.